This is intended to be an overview of the Owning Tomorrow performance model, where you set and achieve goals all the time and everywhere. And our story begins, as it should, with us, specifically what I call our hardware. So that's our stature, our musculature, the color of our eyes and hair, our voice tone, and so forth. Things that can only be changed with some sort of medical intervention. And then there's the other side, and that's our software. Software is our operating system and various apps that we acquire over the course of our learning that we can change and upgrade without medical intervention. It's all in our mind, as we say. Now, like software, conventional software, I think of it as concentric circles. And in the middle, we have our belief systems. And those, in turn, are programmed by the environment, by others, such as our parents, religion, especially personal experiences, and how we think about them, how we process certain things that happen to us. To make this a little less theoretical, let's go back to my two clients. One that takes responsibility and has this belief that she should be there for the community and that she has a part to play. And Barbara and myself, who struggle with that a little bit because there's self-worth issues there, and we're trying to constantly prove ourselves, and there's a belief that we'll never be good enough, and that's what drives us forward for good or for bad. Now, the next circle after our beliefs is what I call mindsets, where you can think of it as attitudes, how our beliefs begin to get themselves known in terms of how we think about the world and how the world occurs to us. And I come back to our three hyperachievers, one of whom has a mindset that is about others, about the community, about playing a role that's meaningful for her and for them, as opposed to those of us who struggle with self-worth and are constantly having great fears of failure, which, by the way, is shared by my first client. However, when she fails, it's a different kind of failure than when Barbara or myself fail. Our states of being are indeed how we are at any given moment. So if we have a belief about the world formed by personal experience that it's a difficult, hard place, our states of being are going to end up probably being nervous, paranoid, insecure, and so forth. And conversely, if we've had a good experience and things seem to work for us, and our upbringing was sound and healthy, we'll come to the world with an open, more vulnerable, more happy state of being. So this is what I call our identity. Now, another way to look at this is our unconscious. Our belief systems, our really core of our being is unconscious, full of hopes and aspirations, but also fears and anxieties. And part of the process that I'm going to show you, and just part of living life, is to take that unconscious and become more aware of it, more mindful, because as it becomes more conscious, it begins to go beyond us, and we begin to be much more able to know ourselves, know the world, and act and navigate in the world very well. So let's move to the second part, which happens to be separate and distinct from ourselves, and those are our aspirations, those things we want to achieve, like maybe building your own business. It doesn't have to be an Amazon or a Facebook, but it can be something smaller, and it could also be a career with success and money. Many people want families, often big families. And then there are the smaller things in life, like passing an exam or dealing with things like preparing for a presentation or employees. Those are what we call the results we're looking to achieve. But there's a third piece. Between our identity and the results we want is something we call the external world. In this case, it's made of very many constituent groups, starting with our friends and family, who also happen to be our programmers in many cases, as well as schools where we are trained. Then when we go into the workplace, it's bosses and staff, government, media, competitors, colleagues, and so forth. And then ultimately the big life events and global events that can shape who we are, how we think about the world, and what we're going to do to achieve our results. We have to negotiate, we have to work with all these various agendas, people, personality types. And how do we do that? We do that by making the best decisions possible, accompanied with the right actions and good communications that takes into account the various constituent groups and individuals' goals, desires, and needs so that we can work as collaboratively as possible to help you achieve the results you want. Now, in my own life, I've worked very hard on this part in terms of working with external constituents, vis-a-vis my decisions, my actions, and communications. And I've developed what I would call a great superpower called empathy, really understanding what people want, what they're thinking, and so forth, so I can act accordingly. The other thing I do is I often do sort of scenario planning. What if I do this? What if I say this? So forth. How will a key constituent that I'm trying to influence or convince of my agenda, how will they react? And how will they help me or possibly hinder me? But there are many times when life doesn't go according to plan. Let's take, for example, schools. When you're first really getting to know the world, you can fail in an exam, you can have a fight with your teacher, maybe a fellow pupil, and there's work that needs to be done to clean up. There are many larger constituent groups, such as the government, that seem to conspire often against us. Government can disrupt people's lives, businesses, and so forth through a simple change in regulation or laws. And then we, again, are forced to rethink the results that we committed ourselves to possibly years earlier. But sometimes we're completely blindsided by something that is unexpected that comes our way. And I'm making an example of life events. An accident that was unforeseen, or somebody who you trusted steals from you or does something bad to you. Those are serious blindsides that we often are unprepared for. And this is where our fears, our doubts, our anxieties, our excuses really start to overtake us. And why they're so devastating is because they come out of that part of our brain that has remained unconscious, where we haven't been willing to explore, haven't been willing to understand ourselves more deeply, and with that, the world around us. And therefore, we are unprepared for these events. And what happens as a result of this? Well, all begin to crumble in the light of a disaster, possibly, that we could have avoided had we made the effort to get to know ourselves. And the secret is, of course, is to return to the skills and the techniques that you acquired as part of your training in the performance model. And of course, the wonderful main thing that happens is you begin to restore your confidence, your courage, and your ability to commit to big and small results. And the skill sets underneath that begin to return and probably are stronger are your ability to understand how others are thinking and feeling, what we call empathy. And then, of course, the creativity, the ability to create a world for ourselves that's uniquely ours. And then there's the resilience and agility that are key to anyone who is a leader, as well as the ability to take action when necessary. But most importantly, we put ourselves back onto the path towards wisdom, which is ultimately, if there's an end goal to a journey, it's to be wiser and more of a sage so you can help others down this journey that ultimately provides the happiest and most fulfilling life you can imagine.